So I had a couple of referrals and a couple of names kept coming up about my surgeon. And I had a girlfriend whose daughter was a nurse, and she had also worked with a surgeon. So that just seemed to be the one that came up. And so I was like, all right, that's a God love letter. I'm using that. So I went straight to the surgeon and made the appointment, and he was terrific. And I did a little bit of look on his website, but I showed up and he says, you know, here's path A and here's path B. And both have the same, you know, recovery rate and outcome. You have to decide what you want to do. And so then at that point, you again have to start researching all down each one of these. You know, your choices are a lumpectomy and radiation, or a mastectomy, single, double, you know, and then all that. And then depending on if the cancer's in your lymph nodes, again, takes a whole different, you know, again, a journey. And so I like information, as people know, and I wanted to sort of research all my options. And even though at first the simple decision seemed to be a lumpectomy and radiation, but I wanted to sort of research through all of it. The first thing my doctor offered was genetic testing, which is really kind of a whole funny thing because my husband had given me one of those 23andMe testing kits a couple of Christmases ago, and I was like, heck no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to know what's ahead. I'm just going to take it as it comes. And so when my doctor said, you know, you may want to do genetic testing, I was like, oh yeah, we're doing that. And so that was one of the first things I did. And then again, it takes a couple of weeks to get those results back. The results of the genetic testing came, and again, as I mentioned, I had gone down this road of talking to all the doctors I possibly could use, no matter what decision I made. So, and you know, there's times in your life you never forget where you were, and my husband and I had just pulled into our driveway, and the doctor's office called, and they said, we have your genetic testing results. You know, are you ready? And I said, sure, you know, go ahead. And I digress for a second. The interesting thing is the surgeon said, oh, you know, I don't anticipate this being anything, you know, you're not a candidate. And so I was like, okay, well, anyway, the genetic testing revealed something different. So they're the BRCA genes that are the ones that you hear about that people have, that it's like, oh, you're gonna for sure get breast cancer. But one of the more recent genes they test is one called ATM, like the money, except not. And it's been one in the last 5 or 6 years they've begun to test for, and that gene connects breast cancer and prostate cancer. And so that connection, at that moment when they said you have tested positive for this gene, it increases your risk of cancer reoccurrence 2 to 5 times. So if my normal reoccurrence was, you know, 5 to 15%, which is what the doctor had told me, now that just got multiplied 2 to 5 times. So now I went from, you know, 25 to 75%, basically. And at that point, it became very clear that I needed to treat this more aggressively. So my father had prostate cancer and ultimately died from, you know, the spread of that in his 80s, but I never knew there was a connection. I never knew that, but my father having prostate cancer meant that I needed to be that much more informed or knowledgeable about my breast cancer risk being higher. It's interesting because once you find out you have this gene, certainly the thought goes to, you know, my sister and my children. So, you know, my sister has a 50-50 chance that she got this gene from my dad or she didn't. You know, same thing with my kids. They either got it from me or they didn't. And so my kids in their 20s, you know, they will need to be thoughtful about their testing when they're a bit older. But again, sure, they need to now be thinking about that. My sister has not done the testing yet, but knows she needs to because she has a daughter. And so again, it begins to get the, you know, you think generations of things that pass down. This is one of the things that got passed down from my dad, which I don't, you know, not thrilled about, but you know, that's how genetics work.